I sat alone on Christmas Eve, the only light in the room coming from the tiny tree I decorated out of habit. Not hope. My phone buzzed just after 6 p.m. or M. A text from Mom. "Hey, sweetie, everyone decided to cancel dinner. The storm's just too bad. No one's coming." I looked outside. The sky was cold and gray, but the roads were clear. Something didn't feel right. I opened Facebook, just out of instinct, and there it was, a picture of my sister's dining room table, full of ham, mashed potatoes, wine glasses clinking, my parents, aunts, cousins, all there, my sister beaming. The caption read, "Best Christmas ever." I stared at it for a full minute. I didn't cry. I didn't call. I just turned my phone over, walked to the kitchen, and reheated leftover soup. The next morning, my phone rang. It was Mom. Her voice was chipper. "We missed you last night. The weather wasn't so bad after all." I smiled, but not the way she expected, because something had already shifted in me, and this time, I wasn't going to let it slide. They thought I'd stay silent, but silence was just the beginning. I've always been the dependable one, the strong daughter, the one who never causes a scene, who remembers birthdays, picks up the phone first, and offers to bring the extra pie to family dinners. I'm 57 now, divorced, no children, and I live alone in a modest 2-bedroom house in Michigan. My younger sister, Emily, is the golden girl. She's bubbly, married with 3 kids, and lives just a few blocks from my parents. She's also incredibly good at staying on everyone's good side, even when it costs others. Growing up, I always felt like the glue. When Mom and Emily fought, I mediated. When Dad was distant, I wrote him cards. When holidays became chaotic, I cleaned, cooked, and made sure everyone smiled. But over the years, that glue started feeling more like invisible tape, keeping things together, but never being noticed. Last Christmas was supposed to be simple. I had offered to host the holiday dinner. Nothing fancy, just warm food, some carols, and a chance to finally feel close again after months of growing distance. A week before, Mom called and said they'd decided to have it at Emily's house instead, more space for the kids. She said, I nodded. Of course, always the kids. I still offered to help prep the desserts. I even dropped off a tray of sweet potato casserole, Mom's favorite. That's why the Christmas Eve text hit me like a snowball to the face. No one's coming. Storm's too bad. No warning. No apology. Just a cold message. I double-checked the forecast. A few flurries. Nothing serious. Then I saw the Facebook photo. They weren't snowed in. They just didn't want me there. I replayed every interaction in my mind, wondering what I'd done wrong. Had I said something to offend Emily? Was I too quiet on Thanksgiving? Did my being single and childless somehow make me an uncomfortable presence at their perfect family table? The truth stung deeper than I admitted. They didn't think I mattered enough to include. They assumed I'd shrug it off, that I'd do what I've always done, smile politely, swallow the hurt, and keep showing up. But grief has a way of changing you, especially when you realize your place in a family was more about utility than love. What they didn't know was I had already been questioning things for months. The one-sided phone calls, the last-minute cancellations, the way Emily always dominated the conversation while I quietly set the table. There's something sobering about being excluded, not because you're difficult, but because you're easy to erase. So I sat there that night, in the glow of a cheap string of lights, and made a silent decision. I wouldn't ask them why. I wouldn't beg to belong. I wouldn't be the background character in my own life anymore. The next morning, when Mom called pretending nothing happened, I answered with a calm voice, but something in my tone made her pause. Sweetheart, you okay? You sound distant. I'm fine. Mom, I said, just reflecting. That was the last normal thing I said before quietly beginning my own version of justice. Not loud, not vengeful, but smart, patient and painfully clear. Because here's the truth. When people exclude you in silence, the most powerful response is to stop showing up at all, not in anger, but in clarity. They didn't cancel Christmas because of weather. They canceled it because I made them uncomfortable. Not by doing anything wrong, but by existing in a way that reminded them of their guilt. And now, I was done pretending. That evening, as I sat alone on my couch, still in the holiday sweater I'd picked out weeks before, something gnawed at me. I wasn't trying to snoop, I just needed closure. So I opened Facebook, not expecting much. And there it was, a photo of the dining room at my sister's house, candles glowing, the familiar red and gold tablecloth Mom always used, and all their smiling faces. My sister had captioned it, "Best Christmas ever, so grateful for family." Family, that word hit like a punch to the chest. There they were, Mom, Dad, my two brothers, their wives, all clinking glasses like nothing had happened. I zoomed in on the window behind them, and I saw it, the icy blur of my mom's minivan parked in front of the house. The same house they'd sworn would be empty, the same storm they claimed had canceled Christmas. It was all a lie, every single word. At first, I stared blankly at the screen. Then, the emotional dam burst. I wasn't angry, I was devastated. Not just because they excluded me, but because they pretended to care. Pretended to include me. While deliberately planning my absence, they didn't forget. They planned it that way. I didn't call or text. I just sat there in silence, feeling the weight of something I had denied for years. I had always been the outsider, the one who remembered birthdays, mailed cards, brought wine to Thanksgiving, the one who sacrificed time and energy to make sure everyone felt loved. But it was never mutual. I started connecting the dots, how my sister always made snide remarks about my job, how my parents glossed over my achievements, how I was always seated on the end at family dinners. This wasn't new. It had just escalated. They didn't want me there. And this was their way of finally admitting it. The next morning, my phone rang. It was Mom. Her voice was chipper. "Hey, sweetheart, Merry Christmas. How did your day go?" There was no mention of the storm, no apology, no explanation. Just fake pleasantries. I didn't say much. Just fine. Then she said the line that sealed everything. "We missed you last night." Missed me. Missed me. They made sure I wasn't there. I knew in that moment I wasn't just hurt. I was done. So I hung up politely, then quietly blocked her number, one by one. I removed myself from the family group chat, unfollowed them on social, and set my boundaries. Then I did something I never thought I'd have the courage to do. I canceled my automatic transfers. For years, I'd been helping pay for Dad's medication co-pays, Mom's internet bill, even chipped in for their car repairs. Not anymore. They had made their choice, and now, so had I. A few days later, I got a long email from my brother, full of guilt-laced rationalizations. "We thought you'd be busy. You're always so critical." It was just one night, but the one sentence that stood out, "We didn't think you'd find out." That was the truth. It wasn't about weather. It wasn't about space. It was about control. They thought I'd always be the good girl, the one who forgave, who came back. But this time, I didn't. Instead, I did something quietly powerful. I started rebuilding my own rituals. I cooked the Christmas meal I was going to make, just for me. I put on music, lit candles, opened a bottle of wine, and toasted to peace. And as the snow gently fell outside, I whispered something that felt more liberating than anything I'd ever said aloud. I choose me. I didn't answer their call the next day. Instead, I sat on my couch with a cup of black coffee and reread every single Christmas post they'd shared. The captions, the photos, the comments. There was my sister, holding up a wine glass. Family means everything. There was my brother-in-law, slicing roast beef in my mom's kitchen, and my mother herself, sitting on the sofa with a Santa hat on, laughing with my niece. Storm? What storm? They hadn't even tried to hide it. I wasn't just excluded. I was erased. And now they had the audacity to call me the next day, acting as if I should pick up and pretend nothing had happened. But I didn't slam doors. I didn't scream. I planned. 2 days later, I scheduled a coffee date with someone who had seen the storm, my friend Kelsey. She lived 2 blocks away from my sister. She saw the driveway packed with cars. She saw the lights on. She even waved to my mom as she stepped outside. "Want me to say something?" she asked gently. I shook my head. "No, but I am going to say something. In my own way." That week, I started sorting boxes in the basement. They were full of gifts I'd bought for the entire family. Thoughtful ones, too. Dad's vintage vinyls I'd hunted for online. Hand-sewn aprons for the nieces. Even the custom wine rack I'd commissioned for my sister. One by one, I placed those gifts on the dining table. Then I wrote individual letters. Not angry ones. Just clear. Honest. I told them how it felt to be told Christmas was canceled, then see the party thrown without me. I told them about the hurt, the betrayal, and the fact that I wasn't going to let it fester in silence. Then I made a video. It wasn't fancy, just me, speaking to the camera. I shared the story. Not in a rage, not with guilt trips, just truth. I was told the weather was too bad. I canceled my own plans, stayed in, lit candles, tried to make peace with missing family, and then I opened my phone. At one point, my voice shook, and I let it. Because people feel truth, and I wanted this to be felt. I posted it privately to a link, and then sent that link in the emails with the letters. And then I went quiet again. 3 days later, I got a message from my cousin, Mia. She'd seen the video. It broke my heart. She wrote, "I didn't even know they did that to you. You deserve better. If you ever want to do a Christmas with me and my folks next year, we'll keep a plate warm." A few more messages came in like that. Not a flood, but steady. From the cousins, the in-laws, people on the periphery. But from my parents, my sister, my brother, silence. Until the following Saturday, I was at the farmer's market, picking out Honeycrisp apples, when my phone buzzed. Blocked number. I ignored it. Then it buzzed again. This time, it was my sister. "We need to talk." She said Mom was furious, that my video was a betrayal of family privacy, that I'd humiliated them. I let her talk. Then I said, "You humiliated me. The difference is, I did it with honesty. You did it with silence and exclusion." She went quiet. Then came the kicker. "So, are you coming to New Year's brunch?" I blinked. That's when it hit me. They still thought I'd just fold, that my pain had an expiration date, that if enough days passed, it would dissolve like sugar in tea. But they were wrong. I didn't say no. I said, "I'll think about it." And then I hung up. Later that night, I called a lawyer. Not for anything litigious, but to make a change. My will. I'd been helping my parents with finances for years. Small deposits here and there. A few hundred for groceries. Sometimes rent when things were tight. It added up. But no more. From now on, that money would go toward building my world, not patching theirs. I called a travel agent, booked a solo trip for the next Christmas. Somewhere warm, full of strangers who didn't pretend to love me, and then I picked up a gift card I'd been saving. It was for a little cafe, my mom's favorite. I wrote a note and mailed it. "To the family who canceled Christmas, have a latte on me. I'll be having peace on mine." The day after Christmas, their call came through, Mom's name lighting up my screen as if nothing had happened. I let it ring twice before answering with a quiet, "Hello?" "Oh, honey. Yesterday was such a mess. Your sister was so upset you weren't there. The weather got better last minute. So we made a quick decision. You understand, right? Understand?" I stared at the snow gently falling outside my window and let her talk. Every word she spoke was a weak stitch, trying to hold together a web of lies already unraveling. My fingers trembled, not from sadness, but from the weight of the truth I had carried alone for too long. I didn't confront her. Instead, I responded gently. I'm glad you had a good Christmas." Then I hung up. But inside, I was done playing the loyal daughter. That evening, I began packing a box, not with gifts, but with receipts, old ones, financial ones, proof of every rent I had paid for my sister when she was jobless, every medical bill I had covered for Mom when she lost insurance, every small favor that somehow became my lifelong obligation. I scanned everything, compiled them into a document labeled Family Contributions, FYI. Then I emailed it to the family group chat. No subject line, no message, just facts. 3 hours later, my brother-in-law responded, "Is this some kind of threat?" I replied with one sentence, "No, just transparency." Over the next week, I began setting boundaries. I removed myself from the family phone plan, stopped paying my sister's car insurance, redirected Mom's monthly utility autopay back to her account. It was quiet, too quiet, until New Year's Eve. My sister called sobbing. "I didn't know they told you not to come," she said. "Mom said you were busy and couldn't make it." I listened. I let her feel the weight of her silence, the price of her complicity. Then I asked, "Did you believe her, or was it just easier not to ask?" She didn't answer. Instead, she said, "They didn't think you'd care." And maybe that was the worst of it. Not the lie, but the assumption that I was so used to being sidelined, I wouldn't notice or mind. But I did notice, and I minded deeply. So I did one final thing. Remember that lake house I'd inherited from my godmother? The one they always begged to use in summer? I called a local charity, arranged to gift the deed to a nonprofit that houses abused women and displaced mothers, women who, like me, had once been made to feel invisible. When the family found out, they went ballistic. "You gave it away! You didn't even ask us!" I replied with a calm they couldn't penetrate. "You never asked me if I was spending Christmas alone either. They tried to guilt me, shame me, spin the narrative, but I had stopped listening. And that's the thing about emotional betrayal. It teaches you to build boundaries not from bitterness, but from self-respect." So when they knocked on my door weeks later, flowers in hand, fake apologies ready, I opened it just wide enough to say, "This year, I canceled my role in your life." Then I closed it. It's strange, isn't it? You spend so many years twisting yourself into shapes to fit someone else's table, biting your tongue during snide comments, laughing off the forgotten birthdays, offering understanding when you receive none in return. You begin to think, maybe this is what love looks like. Maybe this is what family has to be. But then a holiday comes along, one you were looking forward to, and they don't just forget you, they exclude you. On purpose. That's not a mistake. That's a message. And I finally heard it, loud and clear. In the weeks that followed, I didn't block their numbers. I didn't scream or send angry texts. I simply stopped engaging. Not out of pettiness, but out of preservation. You see, I realized something powerful. I was the glue, the one who made things happen, planned the get-togethers, covered the expenses, remembered the details no one else bothered to notice. Without me, the machine didn't run as smoothly. Suddenly, no one was there to coordinate birthdays. No one to pitch in when Mom's prescription wasn't covered. No one to mediate the passive-aggressive feuds between my sister and brother-in-law. They called, left voicemails, some begging, some demanding. I didn't respond because I had already responded in the clearest way possible by stepping out of the role they took for granted. Instead, I poured my energy into rebuilding me. I started a small pottery class on Wednesday evenings, something I'd always wanted to try but never had time for. Turns out, there's something therapeutic about molding clay with your bare hands. You begin to remember that you, too, can be shaped anew. I booked a solo trip to Vermont in February. Just me. A snow-covered cabin. And a promise to myself. I would stop shrinking my joy to make room for people who never noticed it. Most of all, I redefined what family meant. It wasn't the people I shared DNA with. It was the friend who dropped off soup when I was sick, the neighbor who waved every morning with a genuine smile, the community I found online, people who knew what emotional betrayal felt like, and Rose anyway. If you're listening to this and it sounds familiar, if you've ever been the reliable one, the quiet one, the oh, she won't mind one, I want you to know something. Your kindness is not an invitation to be used. Your silence is not acceptance. And your love is not endless if it's never returned. If this story resonated with you, share it in the comments. Tell me, have you ever been excluded or betrayed by someone you trusted deeply? Have you ever had to walk away from family and choose yourself instead? You're not alone. And if you haven't subscribed yet, consider joining this growing community of resilient souls. We don't just survive, we rise with grace, clarity, and just enough quiet revenge to make it satisfying. So hit that subscribe button. Drop it in the comments if you've felt this kind of hurt before, and maybe if you've learned to heal. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do isn't to shout, slam doors, or seek revenge. Sometimes it's to get still, to listen to your own breath again, and to realize the person you were waiting for all this time, to defend you, to value you, to choose you, was you, and you showed up. That's the beginning of everything.